Okay, let's look at this. Ugh. This is not working. Smartling. Okay. Ugh. Where am I? I know she scribbled instructions on here. Wow, these are terrible instructions. Oh, where's a point of reference? This is hopeless. Maybe I can ask someone. Hi, excuse me. Hi, sorry. Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, sorry to bother you. Could you give me directions to the Sky Tower?
Oh, funny story about the Sky Tower, right? So, I tried to go there last night. I wanted to get in the casino, I totally looked 21, right? But then they told me
Sorry, I just wanted directions to the Sky Tower.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you have a phone?
Yeah?
Yeah, see, there's this really cool thing iPhones have. It's called GPS.
Oh, I don't have an iPhone. I just, have a regular phone.
Just have an iPhone. Okay.
Sorry, no, directions. Still need the directions. Yeah.
Maybe just take a bus.
What bus? What?
I don't really know. Smelly cat, smelly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day. What are they?
Hi. Sorry.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm actually in the middle of a very important song, so if I can get back to my
sorry.
fans.
I just got a quick question. I was wondering if you could give me directions to the Sky Tower.
The Sky Tower?
Yeah.
Oh, of course I can give you direct. Right, come over here. All right, you see that street? Right down, but a little bit to the left. I'm not sure what it's called, but you take that one, right?
Okay.
For about, say, 63 and a half steps, maybe. Okay, and then you see that tree right there with the red leaves on it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that one, but about 2 more down, you go right a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. And then, and then if the sun is shining right where it should be, there should be a shadow that'll point straight to the Sky Tower, and then you're there.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I know that's so helpful,
really,
right? Thanks.
Really
You're welcome.
helpful.
Smelly cat.
I am never gonna get there. Oh, wow. Hi. Sorry.
Hey.
Could you give me directions to the Sky Tower?
The Sky Tower.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm meeting my friend there for lunch.
You mean like the actual Auckland City Sky Tower? The one that's like visible from space?
Space.
Is this a joke?
No.
Have you tried looking up? It's like right there.
Oh. Thank you.
See this?
It's right there.
So yesterday, I went into Auckland, the city center, and to get my passport, temporary passport, and I saw it for the first time, the tower. And you see pictures of it, and you hear it talked about, and you see it in news reports about New Zealand and things, and that never quite suffices. You have to actually see the real thing, don't you? I mean, you do this all the time. I have people who come to visit me, and although they've seen the Hollywood sign in movies, and they've seen it, in news, or they could search on the internet and see thousands of pictures of it, it doesn't quite suffice. You actually want to see the real thing, don't you? I mean, you can go to Las Vegas, and you can see a near-perfect replica of the Statue of Liberty at the New York Hotel. How many of you have been there? Oh, you admit this, do you? You've been to Las Vegas? Okay, good. Now we're confessing. Excellent. But people who go to this hotel and see the Statue of Liberty there, they know this is not the real one. And they live with this desire to see the real one in Manhattan, off the coast, We have this desire to see the real thing. Here's what the Apostle Paul, actually, we'll begin there. I'll tell you this now, and later we'll jump to it and we'll read it together. Apostle Paul says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the real thing, the author and perfecter of our faith. Fix your eyes on Jesus. But before we jump to all that, let's begin in Exodus 33, verse 19. I forgot to write down the page numbers, so you'll have to just go to the beginning of the Bible, Genesis, the very beginning, and then turn right. And the very next book is called Exodus, if you're not used to this sort of thing, leafing through the Bible. And the very next book is called Exodus, and then go to chapter 33, and chapter 33, and then 19. So there's a scene happening in Exodus 33:19, which is fascinating for people who have been studying the life of Moses and God. And Moses has been asking God for several things. He's been asking him for demonstration of his power. He's been asking him to go with the people of Israel that he's leading. And eventually, Moses gets to the point where he's like, you know what, since God is saying yes to everything I'm asking for, I'm going to ask him for the biggest thing I could ask him for. This is what Exodus 33:19 says. Then Moses says, okay, since you're saying yes to everything, now show me your glory. That is, show me you, your presence. I want to see who you are, God. Yeah, when in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, I've tried to call it the Hebrew Bible for quite some time now because I have Hebrew friends, Jewish friends who don't like it when I call it the Old Testament. To them it's not the Old Testament. So just to make a bridge, relational bridge with them, I call it the Hebrew Bible. So if you hear me say Hebrew Bible, I'm talking about the Old Testament. But between us, unless there's any Jewish people here tonight, then it's the Hebrew Bible. Right? So the Hebrew Bible, anytime it says the glory of God is the presence of God. The glory of God equals the presence of God. Moses is asking for the presence of God. He wants to see it. That's a pretty big request. Earlier in Exodus, God has said in the giving of the 10 Commandments, he's given the second commandment, which is, do not make images of me and bow down to them as if they were me. Do you know why God says this? Do you know why? So, the way I grew up thinking, do not bow down to things that aren't God, like saints or representations of things. Don't bow. That's really not the point. The point that God is making is, don't make anything and then try to think that that's attached to that as if that is me, because any image that you come up with, any system that you come up with, any system of doctrines or system for understanding who I am that you come up with will be incomplete. Don't worship that. Worship me. Only me. And now Moses, because he lives with a bunch of people around him who have representations of their gods. They have, they build a temple to their god and they put a god in there. Or they go to war, they bring their god with them. Moses finally is like, I would like to see you, which is not an unrealistic request. I mean, it's something that often I ask, God, do something now. Let's see you. Let's see some of your power. Moses says, show me your glory. Bookmark that. It's going to become important in a moment. Show me your glory. Verse 19, and the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you. My goodness. In the Hebrew Bible, my goodness is God's attributes, love, God's justice, God's grace, God's mercy, all of that. God says to Moses, I'm going to cause all of that to pass in front of you. And I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. So you'll see all of my attributes go by, and then you'll hear me proclaim my name, like my name, the Lord. And we say Yahweh, and some translations probably you may have with you will say Jehovah. It's like the way we try to pronounce the unpronounceable name of God. The unpronounceable 4 letters that we find all over the Hebrew Bible, we call it the Holy Tetragrammaton. What a fancy name for just the holy name of God, which a good Jewish person would try not to pronounce because it's too holy. It's too holy. And this is the name that Moses hears here when God is passing by. Moses hears this holy, unpronounceable name of God. There's traditions that say that maybe what Moses heard was the sound of life itself going by, like the Creator going by actually sounds like the sound of breathing and the sound of, being. So God says, my name, you'll hear my name as I go by. I will have mercy, he goes on whom I will have mercy, and I'll have compassion on whom I will have compassion. This is a way for God to state that he is the God of the universe, the one who controls everything. No one tells God what to do because God is God. Amen. So you're like, yeah, amen. If you're a God that controls everything, a God that you don't tell God what to do, God tells us what to do because God is God, then how do you love your creation if you're that God? If you're a God that has the power to control the universe, the skies, the stars, the clouds that make it rain, the source of life, if you're that God, how do you love? You empty yourself of that power, is what the Apostle Paul says. And you give that power up so that we can have a choice to love God. What is the God of the universe who controls everything doing, hanging on a cross, asking for water? If the God of the universe can control the clouds and can make it rain and can control the source of the springs that give us water, why is God hanging on a cross asking for water as if he can't get it from? If you're the God who can have compassion and who will have compassion, the God who controls everything, then you love by giving up that control. Because control and love cannot exist in the same relationship. If you're being controlled, you're not being loved. And if you're being loved, you're not being controlled. No one's saying amen now. Too afraid. If I say amen too loud, then someone's going to look at me going, yeah, what? Can we be real here? Can we be real? Can we be real? You can't be controlled and loved at the same time. Because love requires that you surrender control. When I asked the question of HRH, Her Royal Hotness Shelley Lenore, my wife, it was a real question. Nowadays, I was talking to Leanna about this the other day, nowadays, the question is not, you young ones, like you're engaged before the question even surfaces. Like by the time the question is asked, you've already made certain promises, so there is no suspense. When you say, will you marry me nowadays, it's like, of course, we shop for the ring together. Give it to me. Hand it over. Or listen, didn't we say we were going to make it happen, so can you ask? No, not in our day, like in the ancient times. Like when I asked Shelley, I said, will you marry me? And there was a real chance she was going to say no. And the moments during which the question was in front of her where she was holding my heart. I gave up control. I could have said, you will marry me. But that wouldn't be love, would it? That would be control. So here's the God of the universe, the one that control, the one that I will have compassion, who will have compassion, and I'll have mercy, who will have mercy. But, he said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. Amen. Can't, so Kara, here's, you guys used to sing this song here? I want to know you, I want to see your face. I banned that song at home. First, because it was overplayed. Everyone sang it. Every worship we had. I want to know. We got fatigued of this song. Everyone sang it. with different arrangements, the island version and then the gospel version. But the reason why I banned it is not because of that, is because I don't want to die. So I won't even sing this part. I want to know you. I want to see your face. I had this mental image, as you know, I visualize, of all of us being incinerated in the spot. Okay, there you go. You can't see my face, because the face in the Hebrew Bible, in the Hebrew thought, in Hebrew theology, when you say the face, that's everything, like everything there is about you. And what God is basically saying is, you can't see me like everything that I am and live. You're the creature, I'm the creator. I am infinite, you're finite, very finite. So Moses, what you're asking for is crazy. You can't see me. You can see my goodness, you can see my mercy, my love, my grace, all of that, but not all of that I am. Back to the second commandment, because God knows we can't handle the truth, can't handle all of what God is, and this is why God is saying, don't make representations of who I am, because you'll never get it right. It's never quite complete. But if you make some representation of me, you'll bow down to it like it is, and it isn't. It isn't. All you can do is really surrender to the things that you know and the things that you don't know about me. Just surrender. Just allow me to be the infinite God of the universe. Don't try to understand every detail, because you won't be able to. Surrender to this. When my son was about 1.5 years old, he learned to crawl out of his crib. You know what a crib is? You guys know? All right. Some of you watch MTV Cribs. That's not a house. Is not a crib. That's a crib is where you put the baby to sleep. For the first couple of years, and he learned how to. It was fantastic, to use your parlance. Fantastic. He could lift his leg up over the edge and climb out of his little crib and just make his way around the house and wreak havoc. One night, but in the middle of the night, probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, something bizarre happened where I live. This never happens in Riverside. It doesn't storm there. We get like 2-3 inches of rain a year. Okay, but in the middle of this night, a storm swept through, and there was lightning and thunder, which never happens there either. I've lived there for 11 years now, and this happened like twice in my 11 years there. And the temperature dropped dramatically overnight when the storm came through. And Micah, who we laid down because it was a hot night, we laid him down without, just a blanket or whatever. We were sleeping peacefully. He probably, his little body said, I will die if I stay in here. So he did his trick. He climbed out of the crib, and the next thing I know, I'm sleeping. Sometimes you're sleeping, and sometimes something in your instinct tells you you're being watched. Like someone is watching you. Does this ever happen to you? No, there's a presence in front of me. So I open my eyes and I see him. He's right next to my face, standing there next to me, shivering, with his eyes wide open, because he's never heard lightning or thunder. He doesn't know what that is. What is that sound outside the world? And I just pulled my covers open, and he knew instinctively, crawl in. And he just crawled in, and he snuggled up against me, and he began to warm up, and I could feel the shivering just stop. And at 1.5 years, he could barely talk. He didn't know how thermodynamics work. He didn't know much about what was happening. He just knew, I am cold, and this is a warm place. A warm, safe place. And some of us have been cold for a long time, and we don't understand how it all works. Maybe just relax. Let the presence of God, the infinite God of the universe, just warm you. We don't have to know how it works. Just surrender to that. Just let it. Are you shivering tonight? Are you shivering? Just let God warm you. And the Lord said, verse 21, the Lord said, there is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, here's that word again, the glory of God. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back, but my face, again, warning, God's like, but do not see my face, but my face must not be seen for your own good. How many of you grew up by singing this hymn, He hideth my soul? Sorry to sing it in falsetto. Sounds like I'm making fun of it, but I'm not. It's just, that's the way I've heard it. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the... Have you... some of you weren't grew up in churchy kind of environments, but if you did, that's like standard, like Mildred on the organ playing it every Sabbath. That's, yeah. With that Hawaiian sounding kind of sound from the organ, you know what I'm talking about? Too much? It's just that you're so nice, so sweet, and so wonderful, and I'm feeling loved, so I'm just like hanging out with you tonight. The hymn is not about how God protects us from the storms of life like we sing that hymn. The hymn is taken from this passage, and God is protecting us from himself. Because the presence of God is so holy and so amazing that we could die in his presence. So God actually hides us, protects us from himself. One author that I read a lot says that maybe the fires of hell are actually the presence of God being so righteous and so holy that you incinerate in his presence if there is ugliness or horribleness in your heart. Maybe the cleansing fires of hell are actually the righteousness of God. That stuff we've gone too far now. Let's come back to this, right? Maybe, so what God is doing is actually hiding us, protecting us from his face, because his face must not be seen. His glory must not be seen. So, what can we see? We can see what remains. After God has passed by, he says to Moses, I will protect you. I'll hold my hand there. The hand in Hebrew Bible, in the Hebrew Testament is actually always the power of God, the hand of God. So the power of God holds us there. And then when God lifts his hand, he says, you can see what remains, the misty mist, what remains of who I am. Oh man. Now, John 1. Turn there. Far right. Go to the right. A long ways. All the way to the New Testament. The Greek Testament. Far right. John 1. And while you're preparing to read this, brace yourself with something. Like on the pew or... because your mind is about to be blown. John 1. You know this chapter very, very well if you've been to church a lot. John 1, 14. The Word became flesh. The Word. The voice that brought it all into being. The voice that spoke and things happened. Nature obeyed. Because God is God, the one who controls everything, the universe, and he'll have mercy and who will have mercy and compassion. This voice spoke, this word spoke, he is God. The word became flesh, one of us, became human, I think your translation says, and made his dwelling among us, set up his tent with us. He became one of us and lived with us. We have seen his, his glory. The glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. We have seen the glory. See, I don't know if that is amazing to you, but it is to me. Some of you have been at, is this whole week about Jesus? What else is there? There's nothing else. We have nothing else. We have nothing else but Jesus. Can we go on to other stuff, like, the lists? Would you rather have a list or a person to love? Would you rather have a to-do list to be right with God, or would you rather have the glory of the one that God gave us? Where in the past God has said, you can't handle who I am, you can't see me. Now he's saying the fullness of God is with us in the person of Jesus Christ. When the angel announced the coming of Jesus, what did the angel say? The angel said, behold, I bring you good news. A sale at Farmers. An iPad for everyone. Behold, I bring you good news. Health, wealth, and power for everyone. Behold, I bring you good news. Political deliverance. Behold, no. The angel said, behold, I bring you good news. A person, a Savior is born today. A person that can be known. This is the outrageous claim. That can be known. He can be followed. He can be loved. And he can be worshipped, and he can be enthroned, and he is the glory of the one. God with us. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Let's do it now. Here's what Paul says then. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame because it was shameful, and sat down at the right hand of God, at the throne of God. Paul says, Jesus, it's all about Jesus. For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. As he was dying in that jail that we talked about a couple days ago, he could say with confidence, rejoice. You have everything you need. And here's what he's saying in Hebrews. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, because it's all about Jesus. You want to talk about something else? There is nothing else. This is all we have. We have the glory of the one. It's all we have, and it's all we need. The glory of the one, Jesus. Something dramatic happens when people actually train their eyes on Jesus and begin to focus on Jesus and fix their eyes. We stop arguing about stupid stuff as people. We stop arguing about the color of the carpet. We stop arguing about what kind of rhythms are okay to use in church and what rhythms are not okay to use in church. That stuff doesn't matter because we have Jesus. We stop arguing about what kind of beverage is okay to drink, what beverage is not okay to drink, because we have Jesus. We stop arguing about whether it's okay to paint a room purple in the church or not, because we have Jesus. We stop arguing about how to word our statements of belief because we have Jesus. We are better when we have our eyes fixed on Jesus. We had a situation back at our church at home. I love my church. You know what? And sometimes people who hear me speak over a course of time, you're like, you love old people. Yes, I love old people a lot. The old people in my church are just I call them the platinum members of my church, are just sweet. And, they respond to just the smallest things you do. I have one lady who, every time I walk into the church, I always say, hey, Millie, hey, Millie. Millie has a habit of, she gives me a little pinch in the... the first time she did it, I was like, that's not appropriate. Millie, I told Shelly about it, and Shelly said, she's 90, let her have her fun. But Millie has she's one of our greeters. She has this vision for turning our lobby into a food pantry for the poor. And she takes it to the board. Every couple of months, we sit at the board, and she's like, I have a proposal. You know, especially now that the economy's bad and families are going without food, some of them can't make it on Wednesdays to we have a food pantry. Some of them can't make it on Wednesdays. So instead, let's open it up on Sabbath, and we'll do it on Saturdays in our lobby. And every time she brings this up, people are like, no, Millie, the lobby is the lobby. We're not going to put food there. That's not what it's for. The last time they told her this, Millie said, she said, because I think we have a special bond because of the... She just as frustrated in the sweetest frustration you've ever heard. You want to just hug her, because even in frustration is just cute. She goes, Jesus would. And she's right. If we fixed our gaze on Jesus, we would have this luxury now. We could stop attracting people to church. They would come. You lift me up, I'll make the rest happen. Here's what some of you, I think, got stuck last night when I was talking about this. Attracting people is what we do. What's wrong with attracting people? Well, it is exhausting, for one thing. And here's what happens every time in my zip code when we send out a flyer or whatever. We end up sometimes with people that scare me. Where are the dragons? Show me to the dragons. I'm like, there are no dragons. There are no dragons. Yeah, but right here about the dragons. We could build some. I'm like, no, I don't want to build dragons. What if instead we had Jesus, as we gaze and fix our eyes on him, what if we had Jesus so formed in us that we become irresistible? And then they would line up and bang on the wall saying, please, we want what you have. Could we have what you have? So, we are quickly running out of time, and I'm going to skip some things, Lacey, okay? So instead, I'm going to go straight to, Lacey, let's go to the picture of the inside of that church with those things hanging down. Can you see that one? Let's just fast forward to those. For years, I sat on a staff with Stuart Tyner, who is one of my mentors, because he is amazing. And I had to hear from Stuart about this place in New Zealand called the Papatoi Church. The first time I said it, I was like, Stuart, did you have a stroke? What? You don't have to repeat it. Can you say Patoi? And he goes, nah, it's called Papatoi. So anyway, and then he began to describe you, the people who went to church here, and the pastoral staff, and you became this incredible myth. I was telling the Davies, incredibly sweet people who have hosted me this week, about this. I lived with this, like you, an idealized view of you, like they're amazing. They walk around with glowing halos, and you know what? Now that I've been here, it's kind of true. You are amazing people. You are. You're incredibly sweet, gentle. All of you have taken personal responsibility for the stuff that got stolen, the stuff that I lost last Monday night. Like it was you. Like you know. So if it was you, please, can I have my stuff back? So for years I lived with this, the Papatoi myth until this week. But actually, I actually met a lot of you 3.5 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, on a trip to the Holy Land. And I tell you, the day I met you guys, you know who you are, in Cairo, when your bus drove in and we all had the meeting where all of our people from La Sierra University Church met your people. I was stressed out. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for meeting the Papatoi people, because they're going to be so cool, and we're not as cool as they are. But it turned out you guys were amazing. So we traveled, all of us, getting to know each other, and we traveled around Palestine, and eventually our trip ended in Jerusalem. And remember, we spent a couple of days in Jerusalem, too short. and traveling around the sites in Jerusalem. The day that we were going to Bethlehem, I actually got up just giddy, like, Bethlehem! I'm a weirdo. I actually thought, there'll be a star, and we will follow it. And when we get there, there'll be a manger, and there'll be a little drummer boy. No, I wasn't quite like that, but I actually I wasn't imagining it like it actually was. It's actually this tourist trap, and there's a cathedral everywhere. Jesus stopped here and breathed. Cathedral of the Jesus who breathed, and they're all alleged. Most of them are the alleged site of where Jesus ate an apple. But Bethlehem, the cathedral, the day we went was very busy. There was some service going on inside the grotto where Jesus allegedly was born. And we waited in line for a long time, and I got bored, so I began to walk around this cathedral, and at one point I looked up. Do you guys remember this? You may not have noticed this. I looked up, and I noticed a curious thing. You see those globes above the hanging chandeliers? Those are actually ostrich eggs. And they were everywhere. Did you see this, you guys? You probably didn't, see? Okay. There were ostrich eggs hanging everywhere. I thought, well, that's curious. Why would there be ostrich eggs hanging from the... Actually, Leanne was kind enough to buy me one. You want to see what it looked like in person? Yeah, like this, everywhere. And you know, I spent the whole day, the whole morning at the Church of the Nativity looking at these things, and when we got on the bus, I actually asked our tour guide, I forget their name. I think it was a woman, wasn't it? Tour guide, help me. Why were there so many ostrich eggs hanging from the chandeliers in the Church of the Nativity? She gave me like the get away from me answer. She was like, it's a decoration, or it is a decoration, or whatever the accent is. That's in no way meant to insult you if you have a Palestinian accent. If you have any complaints about that, again, email me at sdavies@pabsta.edu or co.nz. So I waited until the evening for when we had our meal together, and I asked a couple of the people traveling with us who were experts in ancient Palestinian archaeology. I asked the first person, Dr. Bates. I said, Dr. Bates, what's with the ostrich eggs? And I was surprised by his answer because he knew everything. But this one stumped him. He was like, I don't know. And then he said, I've heard that it's maybe spider repellent. See, he's like, because the spiders can't crawl up the chains and, put their cobwebs up there and make it ugly. It's a spider repellent. And, I let it go for a few minutes. Like, I don't know. That seems odd. Wouldn't they use some kind of spray or... Don't you think they would? So internet access was hard to come by. So the first night I Googled, sure enough, I Googled and it's spider repellent. If you Google it tonight, some of you are like already on your phones. Yeah, it's spider repellent. Oh, okay, all right, that's cool. So the next day, we spent an entire day looking at cathedral after cathedral. And maybe you did not notice it, but I did. They were everywhere. There were ostrich eggs everywhere. Everywhere you set foot, there were everywhere on the walls, on the chandeliers. Now, when your eyes are open to something, suddenly you see it everywhere. And I spent the next couple of days, which is all we had there, just obsessing about the ostrich eggs. What is happening? Finally, I cornered Dr. Garrity, who was traveling with us, and he knew everything. He's a Jedi master. It's like, Dr. Garrity, a brilliant archaeologist, well known in the Middle East, what's with the ostrich eggs? And he gave me the answer. This is the answer. He said, Sam, in ancient times, the early church needed symbols, orienting symbols that raised their gaze to Jesus, and they could look at things and be reminded of who Jesus was. So they decorated with these orienting symbols. You know, an orienting symbol, the very word orienting is a Christian word. Orient is where Jerusalem is, so you orient yourself towards Jerusalem where the Messiah will come. Well, churches were built that way. The early churches were actually built facing with the front of the church facing towards the Orient. People were buried this way. They would be buried with their heads aiming at the Orient. So when we say orienting, we're actually using language of the church. They wanted orienting symbols that drew their gaze and their attention and their souls to Jesus. So Dr. Garrity said, so what they did is they took the egg because they knew a phenomenal thing about ostriches. Ostriches, they incubate their eggs under the ground. Some of you Africans may know this already. You know, they dig a hole, they bury their egg, and they cover it, and they lay on it. And then eventually when the chick comes out, it has to break through the ground. It's a symbol of the resurrection. And now I'm like, it's amazing. A symbol of the resurrection everywhere, in every cathedral. And in later years, now I've been traveling in Turkey and other places, and sure enough, you look up, ostrich eggs everywhere. In Europe, if you go to cathedrals in Europe, ostrich eggs everywhere. And that is amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. But that's not it. That's not the reason. I found out more. You're like, what? Wait, it's already 9:45. Dude, okay, maybe I'll tell you tomorrow. No? You want to hear it? Are you sure? Okay. Then I'll tell you. Show them the next picture, would you? Ah, the ostrich. An awkward animal. I heard you had a cousin of the ostrich here, a beast of an animal that was hunted to extinction. Show them the next picture, would you? Yeah, these are emus actually, but there's a close cousin of the ostrich. So here's the deal. One day, my kids who love the zoo, we have season passes to the safari park in Escondido, California. We go there a lot. They love it. There's this bird show in Escondido that's amazing. Anyone been there? To the San Diego Zoo, Escondido Safari Park. Some of you are like, yeah. And there's a bird show there that I've seen 1,000,000 times. Every time we go there, we have to go to the bird show first. I can actually repeat every word that they say at the bird show from memory. And about a year after our trip to the Middle East, I'm sitting at the bird show in the Escondido Safari Park. And they're doing the bird show, and they bring out birds that are really smart, and they can teach them things, and they do incredible tricks. Then they bring out the emu, Frank, the emu. Frank is very dumb. And they explain to you, they say, Frank is an emu. Now, here's the really curious thing about emus. They have gigantic eyes, huge eyes, but they have tiny little brains. So they can't learn tricks. Frank is like 20 years old, and he's been doing the same trick for 20 years, and he still can't get it. And here's the trick. One trainer stands on one end of the stage, the other one stands on the other end of the stage. Both of them have food. Frank comes out, this is on you. Like he does it 5 times a day. It was like, wow, what's happening? And then one trainer goes, Frank, over here, Frank. And he waves the food around until Frank finally goes, oh, yeah, food. And he goes over to the food, and he pecks at the bucket full of food. Blah, 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 blah. He eats it. Then the trick continues. They have to lift Frank's head out of the food, get him to actually get his huge eye to connect with the food on the other end. And then he's like, oh, food, yeah, I'll go to that. He stands on the other end and eats out. And so they do this for a few seconds, for half a minute, and they call the emu stupid and all kinds of names. And you're like, that's not nice, but it's funny. And they keep referencing the fact that his eye is hundreds of times bigger than his brain. So he can see far distances, but he can't remember anything. So I left the park and I called my biologist friend, Lloyd Trueblood, who is an expert in birds. And I said, Lloyd, we have to talk about this. Tell me everything you know about ostriches. And he starts telling me things that I don't want. And I was like, no, get to the breeding, the eggs. And he's like, oh yeah, cool, yeah. So he says, in the ancient times, ancient naturalists believed that ostriches bury their head when there's danger. How many of you grew up with that, watching the Looney Tunes, and you're like, that's exactly what they do? No, they don't. See, the ancient naturalists would head towards the ostriches, and they would see the ostriches feeding on the ground, and because their heads are white, they would blend into the ground. The ostrich does not bury its head when there's danger. Well, that would be crazy. Even if you're a Darwinian evolutionist, how is that a good idea? You bury your head and you leave the meaty part out for the predator to just, not the head. I mean, I will leave my head in the ground, but you can eat the rest of me. How is that a defensive maneuver? No, the ostrich actually, when it's incubating, this is what it does. It actually will lift its eyes and see danger coming. Then it'll stand and run away as fast as it can. And they can go really fast. And as it's running, it trains its gigantic eye on the spot where it left the eggs. And here's what Lloyd said. Lloyd said, and it can run up to a mile away, 1.6 kilometers away, and still see the spot. But if it takes its eye off of the spot, little brain, it's gone forever. I may be crazy, but I think that's why they decorated the churches with ostrich eggs. You fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. When there's danger, when stuff is going wrong in your family, when there's all kinds of problems, you fix your eyes on Jesus. The author and perfecter of your faith. When there's storms, when there's suffering, when there's calamity, when you're handed a you don't work here anymore note, when you're told you have a diagnosis that looks bleak, you run, but you fix your eyes on Jesus. If you take your eyes off of Jesus, we have little brains. And we are forgetful, and we lose our way. Jesus, you are the one, the glory of the infinite God made human, made flesh. May you lift our eyes to gaze upon you, and as we do so, please, Jesus, remind us that you are everything we need. And we pray this in your Son's name, O God, your holy Son's name. Amen.
Thank you, Sam. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be gathering again, and we'd like to invite all of you to join us tomorrow morning. At 11 o'clock, Sam will be speaking in here. He'll be meeting with the youth before that. And so we'll be starting here at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Love to see all of you then. and we'll hear Sam again. Otherwise, sleep well. See you